Contrary to belief, there are positive African American women and men that are impacting today's youth. They are making a difference, but they are doing it in an unrecognized environment, the classroom. African American men and women are often criticized for their educational endeavors. However, they are role models that are inspiring change. Educational values have been criticized in the African American community, not realizing George Washington Carver said it best: education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom.
Series of teachers in humanity disciplines, history, world history, human geography specifically, that made me really want to teach. I was really interested in their classes, and I was really interested in how they taught those classes. And it was by my sophomore year in high school that I said, I want to be a history teacher. And that was the first time that I really knew that I wanted to teach something.
Coincidence? No, I got an education because of my grandmother, who was an educator herself. So I come from a long line of educators.
I got into education. Actually, I'm from a family of teachers and social workers, and my mother always said, don't be a teacher. It's great work, but you'll be underappreciated and underpaid. But in my senior year of college, we ran a tutoring program, and I just really fell in love with the work that I was doing with the kids. And I thought I was going to law school, but I wasn't crazy about law, so that really inspired me, and I went to graduate school to become an educator.
That's an interesting question. I used to be a computer programmer, and I came from England, where I worked as a computer programmer, and in America I was here for 5 years, being like a stay-home mom. But instead of staying home, I always helped at my children's school, and I got interested in education. I was always there 8 till 3:30 or 4, and I just thought it was time to go back to work, but I didn't want to go back to the industry, so I started teaching.
So my mom was an educator. She taught 30 plus years, and growing up, one of the biggest things that impacted me is watching her, but also the teachers and the men that were involved in my life and the lives of my peers, and just seeing the impact that they had on us. I decided to go into education to hopefully make an impact on the life or lives of students.
For my both degrees, I attended an HBCU. And the quality of education that I received at both institutions was phenomenal. 2 plus 2 is 4 anywhere. And both of my HBCUs have produced major people that are doing fabulous things in the world. So I think the quality of education is remarkable, it's stupendous. So I love my HBCUs.
I went to the same college for 4 years, so my only experience is going to Spelman. But what I can say is that I was challenged. I also reinforced all the things that I was raised with in terms of the kind of woman that you should be, the kind of spiritual life you should lead, the kind of community give back you should have. And I think that it was, as much as it's a single sex environment, it was still diverse.
Attending historically black colleges and institutions are vitally important in the sense that the nurturing piece is really big. I think a lot of times students of color in different educational settings, I think it's very important that they have a nurturing environment as well as an environment where they're pushed academically. So HBCUs provide a really great base for nurturing and being able just to see yourself and your professors and other leaders around the campus and in the neighborhood cities. So my alma mater recently settled a lawsuit proposed by one of the state senators, I believe it was. But he proposed his case was based on the idea that you should not be able to step on the campus and tell the difference from a campus from being a predominantly Caucasian institution or a predominantly African American institution based on how it looks. So with that clause, he won a court case where the state had to award funds to make sure that our campus was aesthetically pleasing or aesthetically equal to some of the neighboring predominantly Caucasian universities. So I think it's very important that funds are not just at the college level, but all through education, that funds are adequately displaced and dispersed to ensure that all students receive a balanced and equitable education.
On the alumni level, it needs to be better. You have a lot of alumni who donate, but it can be better than what it is. On the governmental level, I think it just needs to be fair. HBCUs are less funded than what we call PWIs, predominantly white institutions. So the playing field needs to be level. It needs to be fair. But the funding, I think it needs to be better on both ends.
I think that until we have equal pay for equal work in this country, that HBCUs will always be underfunded by their alumni and alumnae, in Spelman's case, because very often women are making less than men, blacks are making less than whites, even if we're doing the same types of work. And not in unionized positions where that kind of thing is illegal, but in more flexible positions in businesses. So for that reason, I feel like the alumni contribution would always be less than maybe some other schools. I also think that because more people of color tend to have to borrow money for their education, that it takes them longer to get to a place in their professional life where they have enough left over to give back. And I think federally, there's a push for inclusion, but not for investing in inclusion. So I think that the government, and before, after, and during President Obama, has done things to inspire the right kinds of attitudes, but not moving the financial resources with those attitudes. I think celebrity is just a job, and it doesn't necessarily qualify you to educate a race. But I also feel like people are entitled to their opinion. I personally celebrate Black History Month because I'm a Black person who has a great deal of respect for the contributions of my ancestors and my contemporaries.
I believe is very important that we recognize and celebrate the achievements of people of color, just given the history that we've had where we've been overlooked and inaccurately documented.
I like the Black History Month. I think it's a good way for everyone to learn about Black history, because it just tends to be shoved in the background, and a lot of accomplishments and things that Black people have done in the past are just kind of like overlooked or minimized. So with the Black History Month, kids get to know how the Black people have contributed to the growth and development of America, I suppose.
I do think it's time for another evolving of how we look at and how we approach Black History Month. By saying that, I mean there's no other ethnic group I feel that celebrates their culture by talking about the first of their group to do something. I think that the story of the African diaspora is so deep and so vast that it's time for us to evolve in our approach and acknowledgement of Black History Month.
Necessary but vital to our young people understanding who they are in a multicultural world.
Obviously, she doesn't know the struggle that they went to just even get the entire month when it originally started with Negro History Week. So I need for her to go read Have times changed from segregation? Yes. Is racism still alive and well? Yes. Just looking at the whole Black Lives Matter movement and the reason why that movement came about because of unarmed African American men and women being gunned down for no reason. So, has the world changed since segregation? Definitely. Is racism still alive? Definitely. And if you don't think racism is alive, I don't know what world you're living in.
I think times have changed from segregation in positive and negative. I think the idea of integration at the time was hopeful and needed. I also think that integration, hurt the African American community in some ways as well, whereas our communities were a lot stronger and intact during the days of integration. And once we integrated, our communities were stronger during the days of segregation. And once we integrated, our communities saw businesses as well as strong community leaders leave our communities. And from that point, our communities began to deteriorate in many ways. And we're still seeing the effects of the ramifications of integration today.
There are also some stagnant points where people, and we're seeing that in our political arena now, people still have these old world ideas of segregation being the way to handle conflict or imperialism being the way to handle conflict, when I don't believe that. So I would say there are changes, but there are also some standstill points. There are also some points where we are turning back the hands of time because we refuse to be uncomfortable in our honesty. And I really don't feel like there are certain things that we can transgress above until people get uncomfortable. If you're comfortable in every discussion you have about race, somebody is not telling the truth.
My advice to today's youth would be know thyself, know who you are. Don't be afraid of being who you are. Be your authentic self, and don't be afraid of being your authentic self. If people don't like it, oh well, that's their loss. But as long as you're true to you, you'll be all right.
To treat one another as human beings.
Whatever you think you can do, don't let anybody talk you out of it. You know, be creative, be hardworking, and just try and do whatever you feel you could do.
Dream big, know that Earth's population is ever increasing, and the demands to meet your basic needs will rely heavily on your skill set. Many of the low skill set jobs that we have today are going to be replaced by software and or robotic processes, and many jobs that will be available in your future haven't been created yet, but they will require skills in being able to think critically, being able to work in teams, being able to communicate, and being able to be innovative. So I strongly encourage students to focus or work toward making yourself a well-rounded learner and student, so that you can make yourself as marketable as possible to either start your own business or to acquire the available jobs that will be available in your future.
My advice to today's youth, I guess, is the same advice that all of us have had, that you should live in the moment, but you should plan for the long term. You should live fully. You should do everything you can to make your life what you want it to be, without damaging the credibility and experience of other people. So as much as you should fuel your own dreams, you should understand how everything kind of spreads out, where no one lives in a vacuum and there's no man on an island. But with you following your dreams, educating yourself, traveling the world, finding financial independence, sustaining a spiritual life, you know, all of those things, being true to your family, working in your communities. I think that it's important that we just tell young people that you have options.
These educators that have just been interviewed are just a small percentages of African American educators that are impacting our youth. They are not the stereotype that society and the media portray. If education is a primary focus, then positive impacts and change can only happen. Malcolm X said, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today.